ठीक है ओके थैंक यू
ఇక్కడ హెడ్ ఫోన్స్ ఉండేవి ఒకసారి అక్కడ కంపెనీ దగ్గర చిన్నవి ఇట్లా చెవులో పెట్టుకుని
hello everyone am I audible
yes
all right a very good morning to all of you. It is very heartening and encouraging to see so many people join our webinar today, even in these times of great difficulty. And it is with the hope that we may find certain solutions to the problems that we are facing in these times that we have organized this series of webinars. I'm Shritama Moitra from the Department of English, and I welcome all of you on behalf of the Department of Psychology, English Literature, and Journalism. Our Dean of Arts, Dr. Ratnavani is here with us. And may I request ma'am to kindly say a few words of encouragement to us and anything you might want to share with us today.
Thank you, Sridhama. I'm so happy to be here in your midst today. Honorable resource person, respected delegates of the web, and my dear colleagues, good morning and greetings to you all on behalf of the management of Loyola Academy Degree and PG College, Hyderabad. Before we start the technical session, I would like to give you a brief introduction of our college and also the aim of the present webinar. Loyola Academy is a Catholic minority institution run by the priests of the Society of Jesus, which is an international organization founded by Saint Ignatius. The priests of this society are also known as Jesuits, means followers of Jesus Christ. They are not only working on the spiritual charity lines, but also rendering their services in the field of education. Many topmost colleges in our country, like St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, St. Xavier's, Mumbai, St. Joseph's College, Trichy, Loyola College, Chennai, Vijayawada, like this, more than 51 colleges, topmost colleges, are running by the Jesuit fathers. When it comes to Loyola Academy, Hyderabad, it was established in the year 1975 as a junior college on the request of the state government. Later, in 1978, degree courses with 2 departments, degree college has started, and also PG has started later. Right now, we are having 21 UG departments and 5 PG departments. We are affiliated to Usmania University. Our university has granted us autonomous status in the year 1992. UGC also recognized our institution as CPE. Most of you know the meaning of this word, but still I want to tell you what is this. CPE means College with Potential for Excellence. We also went for NAC accreditation process for 3 times, that is in the year 2005, 2011, and 2019. In all these 3 cycles, we are awarded A grade rank, and our college has a beautiful campus spread in 132 acres of the land. I hope no college in Twin Cities have this much of land, especially in the private colleges. So that is another essay for our college. And moving forward, our college management has set a vision for our staff, that is to impart higher education with integral formation of academic excellence, spiritual growth, social commitment, and value-based leadership. And we also have a mission which says we are supposed to make the students as men and women for others and mold them as the global citizens. Then, when it comes to the hosting department, that is psychology, English literature, and journalism, which is a major department, was established in 2006, and it is one of the strongest departments in our college, both in UG and PG also, well manned by highly qualified, dedicated faculty and motivating faculty thereon. So on this platform, I would like to congratulate as a Dean of Arts and Humanities. I always take pleasure in this department. So, on behalf of my side and management side, I would like to congratulate the HOD of the department, Dr. Swarlipi, and all the faculty who really worked and put their efforts to make this idea of webinar into reality today in our midst. Dear participants, I assure you all that you will have a wonderful learning experience in these 4 sessions because department has invited very eminent people as resource persons to empower you all. Before I conclude, I express my gratitude to the college management, our superior, Father Raju, our correspondent, Father Chandevan, our principal, Reverend Dr. Anthony Potireddy, and our principals, PG, Dr. Joji Reddy, and Father Swami. And also, I thank our treasurer, Father Lurgu, for their constant support and guidance for all the activities we are doing in the college. Finally, I thank and pray Almighty God to shower His blessings upon all of us so that all through this webinar, it will be a blessing for all of us and we will be a blessing to others. So finally, I want to say, empower yourself in order to empower others. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is an absolute pleasure to have you amongst us. Your encouragement and your words of blessing mean a lot to us. May I now invite our HOD, Dr. Swaralipi Nandi, the head of our triple major department of psychology, English, and journalism, to introduce the concept behind this national webinar series that we are holding today on reflections on the pandemic, present, and future. Dr. Nandi, over to you.
Good morning. Am I audible and visible?
Audible, yes. Not visible. Yes, now visible.
Okay, great. Okay. Good morning. I'm Dr. Swaralipi Nandi. I'm the HOD of the Department of Psychology at Loyola Academy. I extend my warm welcome to all the participants of this national webinar titled Reflections on the Pandemic and Future. As we all know, webinars have become the most popular method of academic engagement during this lockdown period. We might be confined in our homes, but as teachers and students, we believe in keeping ourselves intellectually stimulated during these difficult times. Yet, this webinar has been organized not only as an intellectual activity, but also to make us think about the world around us. On our first 2 days, we have renowned psychologists speaking on the psychological impact of the pandemic and the ways to deal with the stress, insecurity, and anxiety that might arise among students. We look forward to learning the stress management techniques and applying them in the real world. On the third day, we have a prominent permaculture trainer speaking on sustainable living and the healthier choices we can make for ourselves in our lifestyle as well as for the planet. On day 4, we have an esteemed speaker speaking on the role of media during COVID-19. Hope to learn a lot from this session and we look forward to a series of enriching and meaningful interactive experiences. So without wasting any more time, I think we should move on to our first session. Thank you so much for being a part of this and I hope you enjoy all the 4 sessions. Stay with us. Thank you so much. Let us begin with our first.
Thank you, Dr. Nandi. I shall now introduce you to our esteemed speaker for the day, Mr. Nasir Javid. Mr. Nasir Javid, who is a transdisciplinary rehabilitation and mental health professional with a unique academic background, has experience in early intervention, management of all disabilities, delivering result oriented therapies to persons with disabilities, and in teaching and training professionals in the field of mental health and disability rehabilitation. His areas of interest and specialization, among others, include developmental assessment, IQ assessment, mental status examination, psychotherapies, psychoeducational assessment, developmental therapy, early identification and intervention of disabilities, guidance and counseling, applied behavior analysis, physical rehabilitation, holistic management of all disabilities, teaching and training other professionals in the field, building the organization through developing protocols, curriculum, and other promotional activities. He has had a rich professional experience too. He has worked for Life Help Center for Child Care, Rose Lane Colony in Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir. As a rehabilitation therapist, he has delivered comprehensive rehabilitation services there to children and individuals with disabilities, with pervasive developmental disorders, autism spectrum disorders, locomotor disability, speech and hearing impairment, visual impairment, intellectual disability, and other multiple disabilities. He has also been a rehabilitation consultant at Humanity Welfare Trust in Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Javid holds an MPhil in Rehabilitation Psychology from the National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disabilities, Secunderabad, and a master's degree in Clinical Psychology from Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. He also has a rich experience in trainings and internships. He has presented papers in national as well as international conferences and is a regular participant as well, both at national and international conferences. On behalf of the Department of Psychology, English Literature, and Journalism, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. And the virtual stage is now all yours. We are all ears.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
visible?
you're audible and visible.
So, yeah. So before shortly, sharing my screen, I just want to extend my gratitude to all of you, including the HOD and Dr. Ratnavani, and as well as other faculty who are here, who took their time to hear me. I'm really grateful for having me. Okay.
Please go ahead, sir.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. It shows you're about to share content.
Yeah. It will take time. Just a minute.
Yes. We have this PPT on stress management.
Yeah. Exactly. So before proceeding, I would really request all of the participants, if they have any questions, please post your questions in the chat box. And I really want to devote last 15 or 20 minutes of the session for question answer session. It is possible. Okay, now I will be talking about stress management. I'm Nasir Javid. I'm presently working as a wellness coach with Accenture Solutions, Hyderabad. Now, what is stress? We all know it's a physiological reaction to emotional and or mental pressure, right? Faced with danger, the body kicks into gear, flooding the body with hormones like adrenaline or cortisol that elevate your heart rate, increase your blood pressure, boost your energy, and it can also prepare you to deal with the problem, right? So we all know it happens at the physiological level, and it has a complex neurobiology taking place in the background. So stress, obviously, it's dangerous to mental and physical health when sustained for a very long period of time. But at the same time, it's not a mental disorder. It's not a mental health condition, but it can lead to or worsen mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. At this point, I really want to make a distinction between stress and anxiety. So most of the people, including some of the psychology students, they don't understand the difference between stress and anxiety, because they both share the common emotional responses. So both are emotional responses, but stress is typically caused by an external trigger. The trigger which is provoking the stress is external usually. The trigger can be short term, such as a work deadline or a fight with a loved one, or long term, such as poverty, discrimination, and it can also be chronic illness. So people under stress experience mental and physical symptoms. We all know that, right? Such as irritability, anger, fatigue, muscle pain, digestive problems, as well as sleep disturbances. Anxiety, on the other hand, is defined by persistent excessive worries that don't go away even in the absence of a stressor. So there's a fine distinction. So in case of anxiety, there's a fine distinction. So in anxiety, even in the absence of a stressor, even in the absence of an anxiety provoking situation, the person feels persistent and excessive worry. So just different resolutions of a stressful event distinguishes stress from anxiety, right? Anxiety leads to nearly identical set of symptoms as stress. So, WHO has emphasized on this stress, and it is the health epidemic of the 21st century. The causes of stress are immense. We all know that. It's shocking that you'll be shocked to know that stress has overtaken the common cold as a major reason for absence from work. Besides immense toll on our adaptive functioning, like day-to-day activities, our occupational functioning, stress significantly affects the physical, emotional, and social well-being of the individual. So these are some of the signs and symptoms which are associated with stress as well as anxiety. So they happen at all four levels: physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. So some of the physical signs and symptoms might be exhaustion, it can be aches and pains, it can be rapid heartbeat, it can be shallow breathing, it can be dizziness, it can be sweaty hands, right? Emotional is irritability, impatience, agitation, sense of loneliness and isolation, inability to enjoy yourself. That happens at the emotional level. So cognitive symptoms and signs include inability to concentrate, overjudgment, memory problems, trouble making decisions, loss of perspective, and long-term vision. At the behavioral level, it can include sleep problems, sleeping too much or too little, isolating yourself from others, procrastinating or delaying things, or neglecting responsibilities, and nervous habits such as nail biting, pacing, moving your legs, right? So these some of these signs and symptoms are overlapping with anxiety and depressive disorders. But right now, the distinction is clear. Like in the absence of a stress, in the absence of a stressful event, like the person is feeling excessive and persistent worry, then the person is suffering from anxiety, not stress. Right. So let's consider a model of stress. Why a model of stress? That's the question. Because it provides a useful framework that is broken down into a number of stages. This model of stress provides a useful framework to understand how stress is triggered and how it can be successfully managed. So the first stage is usually a life event or an external pressure or a demand that has come to the person's attention, like the current lockdown, where we miss human connection, where we have a sense of loss of productivity. It could be being asked to give a presentation to the board of directors, or it can also be to complete an important project with a deadline. And some of the more serious life events might be a serious accident, it can be a chronic illness. So that is the first stage, which provokes or which triggers the stress, or the physiological response of the individual. During stage second, if the person is perceives this event or pressure as stressful, then this triggers the fight or flight stress response. The person might judge the situation negatively by saying to him or herself something like, "Oh no, it's too difficult to stay indoors for such a long time." Right? Right now it's happening. So we all say, we all have that feeling. It's too difficult. We all have that negative appraisal of this lockdown. Like, it's too difficult to stay indoors for such a long time. It's awful. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. I'm going to look so bad. Or some other examples, I'm going to get infected, right? So it depends on the perception at the stage two, which leads to the stressful stages, the later stages of the stress. However, if people believe they have the ability to deal with the demand, they perceive the situation as a challenge, right? And not as anything stressful. So third stress response, or the third stage is the three key responses to stress are activated. The psychological, we know that behavioral and physiological. The physiological response include the release of stress hormones such as adrenaline, cortisol, which prepare the heart, lungs, and major muscle groups for action, for either fight or flight. Sugars might be also released into the blood to provide energy. So one of the main stress hormones is cortisol. We know that, right? So cortisol is released by adrenal glands of the kidneys, and it speeds up this breakdown of sugar so that it prepares the body for fight or flight response, right? However, in many situations like this lockdown, there is no need to either fight or flee. We all know that. Instead, you may choose to think, feel, and act in a manner which helps you to focus on the task or difficult situation that has arisen. For example, instead of procrastinating when given an important task by a senior manager at work, you could decide to focus on the task immediately. You have that choice, right? Develop a priority list and get it completed within the deadline. This coping style helps you to be resilient. So at the fourth stage, people reappraise the original situation, whether or not they have successfully, and decide whether or not they have successfully resolved it. If it is resolved or being managed successfully, the stress response is usually switched off. The physiological response to stress is usually switched off. However, if a person believes he or she is not coping with the stress, which happens many a times, then some of the unhelpful psychological, behavioral, as well as physiological responses may persist. So that is stage 4. Stage 5 is stress responses fail to remove or modify causal factor. So it focuses on whether the person has modified, removed, or otherwise dealt with the external cause of stress over a period of time. If the life event or external stress factor has not been successfully dealt with, physical or psychological illness may ensue. So this is the model of stress. Like, why this model of stress? Because it, as I discussed earlier, it provides a useful framework for us to like appropriate intervention so that we're able to overcome this. So we need to reflect on some of the sources of our stress: new job or a new role, financial difficulties, kids, aging family members, marriage, health issues, pandemics. They can all be sources of stress, and they can lead to different problems at the physical, psychological, cognitive, and behavioral level, right? So before moving on to the specific techniques of overcoming stress, I just want to give you a brief introduction about resilience, which is a very, very good concept and a very relevant concept, and it's related to wellness and positive psychology, right? So we all talk nowadays. Professionals are talking about resilience because situations are going out of control. We don't have control over situations, so it's better to change ourselves to build a resilience, mental resilience, so that we are able to better cope up with the stresses of daily living. So what is resilience? Our inner strength that helps us to adapt to our best ability in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Resilience means being able to bounce back from difficult experiences. So that is resilience, and these are some of the characteristics of resilient individuals. And as we can see, like, resilient individuals are not necessarily strong in the conventional understanding of the word. So resilient individuals are usually adaptable, flexible, and they embrace change. Like, they have strong social connections and relationships for sport. They build those connections. They see relationships for sport, and they have some internal confidence and belief in their ability to deal with challenges. They are not easily discouraged, adapt rather than quite. They are very self-aware about their sources of stress and about their feelings, both positive and negative feelings. And they are able to and know where to ask for help. And they have a strong sense of purpose. I make a difference because of what I do. So they have a strong sense of meaning of life. That is the characteristics of resilient individuals. And as you can see from some of the characteristics, it's not necessarily like the resilient individual is a strong person. They can seek support. We all can seek support, and we can build human connections and relationships so that we are getting that support in our difficult time. So these are some of the characteristics of stress. And the good news is resilience is not a fixed personality trait, right? You may be surprised at your own resilience. It's a quality within all of us. as we can see in the coming slides, as we will discuss in the coming slides, like there are so many things, there are so many activities, there are so many practices we can employ to build our mental resilience. So, in a general framework, I just want to share some coping tips to help reduce stress and build resilience. First, I have divided into four parts. That is, take care of your body, get enough sleep, because exercise, focus on proper nutrition, because these are the three things which power us physically, right? Enough sleep, exercise, and proper nutrition. So that is taking care of your body, so that you are able to reduce, so that you are able to overcome the stressful responses. Take care of your mind, practice relaxation techniques, especially mindfulness or progressive muscular relaxation, which we usually do with our clients. Build positive beliefs and connect with your strengths. So it starts with an insight, like and asking critical questions to ourselves: what are my weaknesses, and what are my strengths, what are my beliefs, whether they are positive or negative, whether they are helpful or unhelpful, right? uh, and trying to gain an insight of my strengths and weaknesses. That happens at the mind level. Take care of your soul, connect with, nurture yourself, find your sense of purpose, and engage in activity that fuel it. So it's related to the meaning, like we can find meaning in what we do, and that a sense of meaning can make us feel good about ourselves. And in fact, research says that, like, when we have a very strong sense of meaning, when we have a very strong sense of purpose, there's a surge of feel good hormones like dopamine and serotonin. We all know that, right? So take care of your heart. That's very important. Develop a support network. Take time to understand your emotions and their root causes, and share how you are feeling. That is very, very important. It's not a sign of weakness, like sharing your feelings, both positive and negative feelings, with your near ones, or your family members, or your friends. It's a sign of wisdom and sanity, like, you're sharing your feelings with your loved ones. So I would really emphasize on some of these techniques, actually, like, because they are very relevant to the present pandemic, and they are related to the building mental resilience. So managing stress, it can happen at three levels. I have divided it into thinking, imagery, and behavior. So by changing our thinking patterns, by changing our imagery, and by changing our behavior, we can manage stress in a very, very effective way. So, what is this changing your thinking? Obviously, it's not a modern concept. As simple as A, B, C, D, E. We all know that model, right? ABCD model of stress. So, what happens? A is an activating event or a situation like this pandemic or a lockdown or a fearful situation or an exam, or a presentation which you are supposed to deliver shortly. So that can be an activating event. Belief is about beliefs are about the events, like, which are going to happen in the future, right? C is consequences, emotional such as anxiety or anger. It can happen at the behavioral level, such as aggression or avoidance. It depends on the situation and the mental resilience of the person. The person can suffer from anxiety at C, right? When consequences happen because of the beliefs about activating events. It can happen at the behavioral level. The person can be aggressive, or he or she can simply avoid the situation so as to overcome the stressful response. Or it can be physiological, such as palpitations, sweaty, clammy hands, right? So consequences are due to the beliefs about the event, activating event. So what we do in our clinical practice, and what most of the professionals and wellness coaches do, they try to change this thinking pattern. They try to change this beliefs, the personal philosophies of the individual, which are like leading to the consequences, the negative consequences, of course. So what happens in therapy? Usually we come to D. We tend to dispute. We tend to challenge those beliefs which are leading to the consequences due to the activating event. And at the end, we try to employ an effective new approach to deal with the activating event or problem at A. So this is a model, this is a model of stress, which is related to the belief systems, the personal philosophies, and it's a model which helps us to dispute the beliefs, or challenge the beliefs at B, so that we are able to the consequences of a stressful or activating event. So, but before going on to the thinking errors we usually make, most of us make, I really want to emphasize on this thinking error, because this is very relevant to the current lockdown. So, we all tend to confuse uncertainty with risk. So, common thinking error during pandemic: uncertainty involves unknown possible outcomes. We know that. Risk involves known possible outcomes. Right now, we are suffering from risk, we are not suffering from uncertainty. Risk is not especially scary because we can manage risk. And you might be knowing that, like, the insurance industry thrives on risk management, right? So risk we can manage, but uncertainty we can't manage. Right now we are going through a risky time, we are not going through an uncertain time. That's the moment we have this insight, like, uncertainty is different and risk is different, we'll definitely feel good about ourselves and we will not be very scared of the current lockdown. So that's one of the thinking error many people engage in. They confuse uncertainty with risk. So I just want to talk about some of the thinking errors which lead to the consequences of the stressful event, usually negative consequences. The first one is all or nothing thinking, right? We view things in absolute extreme terms without any shades of gray. Examples: if a job is worth doing, it's worth doing really well. So we don't see some shades of gray. It's absolute. It's right or wrong. It's left or right. So all or nothing thinking. There is no the middle line in between in this type of thinking. So one of the examples might be also, my partner always makes the same mistakes, right? So this is one of the thinking error we like people with a stressful response, more stressful responses usually engage in. The second one is labeling. We globally rate ourselves, others, or the universe. It can be that rating or that labeling or rating can be about ourselves, it can be about others, it can be about the universe, as opposed to rating skill deficits or specific behaviors. Examples can include, just because I have failed my professional exam, this proves I'm a total failure. So because just because of one single instance, we tend to feel like, we are a total failure. She is late again. The other example might be, she is late again, this proves that she is incompetent. So that is one of the examples of labeling. The third one is focusing on the negative. Instead of keeping life or events in perspective, we focus only on the negative aspects. Examples: this lockdown has brought so much of frustration. So we are just focusing on the negative. We are not trying to focus or divert our attention on some of the positive aspects of lockdown. Like one of the examples of the positive aspects of lockdown might be, we all got an opportunity to stay with our family, to spend a real quality time with our family. The air pollution or the noise pollution has drastically reduced because of the lockdown, and we all got the opportunity to really turn inwards and really think what is going on in our lives. Otherwise we don't get this opportunity. So that might be some of the positive aspects of the lockdown, but we tend to focus on the negative, right? The fourth one is discounting the positive. It's the opposite of focusing on the negative. We choose to reframe anything positive as unimportant. Examples might be, when my manager gives me a positive feedback, she's only saying it to be nice. We tend to judge our managers, or we tend to judge our HODs. Like, when she gives me a positive feedback, she doesn't really mean it. It's just to appease me. It's just to entice me. So we are not recognizing the positive feedback. We are just discounting it. That's also one of the thinking errors. The fifth one is mind reading. We infer from people's behavior that they are either thinking or reacting negatively towards us. Examples might be, I am sure my colleagues think that I can't undertake this project successfully. My neighbor has ignored me again. He must have seen me in the garden. What I have done to upset him. So these are some of the examples of mind reading. Fortune telling is, we predict the worst case scenario often by using insufficient evidence. Examples might be, we won't reach the deadline. I can see it all going wrong. What is the point in going on holiday? This lockdown is bound to be awful and we will get stuck inside again. So that can be one of the examples of fortune telling. The next one is magnification or awfulizing. We have a tendency to blow the significance of events out of proportion and make mountains out of molehills, as many people say. Making mountains out of molehills. Examples: if we don't reach that deadline, the outcome will be awful. Or if he or she leaves me, it will be the end of my world. So that we are magnifying a small event or a very unimportant event, and we are awfulizing it or magnifying it to the degree like it creates a disturbance in our mind. So the next one is minimization. We condemn ourselves for our shortcomings and make excuses for our successes or strengths. Examples might be, the exam I have passed were easy ones, I was lucky. So it's like minimizing your own capabilities. That's also one of the thinking errors, right? Emotional reasoning, that's very, very important. We evaluate situations by how we feel. not how we rationalize the situation, now not how we appraise or perceive the situation. It's just based on our feelings. We are judging the situation. That is emotional reason. A very important example might be because I feel so angry, it treat right. So it's only based on the feeling, the outcome of the situation. I feel so anxious about lockdown. It can be another example. It must be dangerous to come out. That's also emotional reason. Just because of our feelings, we are judging a certain event, which is very stressful. Overgeneralization, we predict repeated outcomes on the basis of only one event. We tend to overgeneralize. For example, I have got off to a bad start today. That means the rest of the day will be a write off too, right? We all have experienced this. There is no point in applying for promotion as they have already turned me down once before. So it's one example of overgeneralization. That's also one of the thinking errors. So why I'm devoting most of my time in thinking errors, because this is a very important thing. Like the moment we are able to have insights about our thinking errors at the belief system in the ABCD model, then we are in a better position to manage our thinking skills, employ our thinking skills to manage our stresses. That's why I'm devoting much of time to thinking errors, right? So next one is personalization. We blame ourselves unfairly for something for which we are not totally responsible. Examples might be the team did not reach the target, it's all my fault. Attributing fault of everyone to oneself, that can be one example of personalization. Sorry. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you. You can continue, sir.
Okay, okay. Can you see my screen?
No, we cannot see the screen.
So I was talking about. Now, can you see it?
No, we cannot see the screen. Yeah, now
Yes.
we can see.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thanks for confirming. So I was talking about thinking errors, right? So I was talking about personalization. We blame ourselves unfairly for something for which we are not totally responsible. Examples might be the team did not reach the target. It's all my fault. So attributing every fault of the team to oneself, that is personalization. Trying to personalize things or stressful situations. And the last one is I can't stand it itis. That was the term which was coined by Albert Ellis, the rational emotive therapist. So what happens at I can't stand it itis? We lower our tolerance for dealing with adversity or frustrating situations by telling ourselves that I can't stand it or I can't bear it. Examples: I can't bear to stay indoors for such a long time. That's also one example of I can't stand it itis. So these were some of the thinking errors uh, which usually like happen while appraising a stressful situation. So what is the solution now? Now like once we like meet clients and we tend to have insights about their thinking errors about a stressful situation or event, we tend to dispute beliefs and we tend to address their thinking errors. That's a very very important intervention, and that is very very like effective, and that has a very less rate of relapses, as I have seen in my clinical practice. So the moment we start disputing the beliefs, we start addressing or challenging the thinking errors, we are in a better position to manage the stressful events. Once we note down our stress inducing thoughts and thinking errors at B, we can start to dispute or challenge them at D, right? And subsequently develop new stress coping statements along with an effective new approach to help us deal with the stressful event. For example, instead of thinking I have failed my exam, let's take this example about a failed exam. I have failed this exam, therefore I am a complete failure. Now what we do in therapy, we tend to make the client focus on the behavioral deficit and avoid going as far as global rating of yourself. Now the alternate thought or the thinking will be, all it proves that I have failed my exam, no more no less, tough, too bad, I can survive this hassle. Another example is to think, although I have acted stupidly, this does not mean I'm a stupid person. So we tend to challenge these thinking errors, and we tend to provide insights to the client, like yes, like you have committed these mistakes, so-called mistakes, but it doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't make you a weak person. So one of the things also we can do in therapy, we usually do in therapy, is seeking evidence for all the negative beliefs or these core negative beliefs or thinking errors. So avoid mind reading or making assumptions. Look for the evidence for and against your stress-inducing ideas. This may involve asking your family, friends, or colleagues for feedback about something you may have done, such as giving a presentation, completing a task, or having some personal issue. If you believe that your manager or partner really does not like what you are doing or have done, ask him to share his or her thoughts with you. Avoid beating around the bush. Ask a direct question. You can challenge your thinking behaviorally as well. For example, if you believe that I can't stand to wait in a queue, when you next find yourself in a situation when you have to be in the queue, join the longest queue. Instead of making yourself angry and very disturbed, remind yourself that although I don't like standing in a queue, I am a living proof that I can stand it. So it's challenging the belief I can't stand it. It's one of the things we can also employ is we can think more flexibly in order to address our thinking errors. So, dogmatic, inflexible, and absolutist and demanding beliefs trigger high levels of stress. Introduce flexible beliefs such as preferences, desires, and wants into your routine. That's very important. For example, instead of thinking I must perform well, I should achieve my deadlines regardless of the lack of resources, or my children have to do well at school. Attempt to become more flexible in your thinking style. It's strongly preferable to perform well, but realistically, I don't have to. Although it's highly desirable to achieve my deadlines, with the current lack of resources, I can only do my best. So it's one example of flexible thinking. We can also employ this strategy called de-magnifying or de-awfulizing the situation. Whatever the situation, if you blow it out of proportion, you are very likely to increase your stress levels, right? Of course, events may be difficult to deal with or even be very, very bad, but are they really the end of the world? Are they really awful? Are they really horrible? Seldom are events we face on a day-to-day basis that bad. To examine stress scenarios dispassionately, we recommend that you distance yourself from your immediate stress inducing thinking, so that you are able to see the world wood from the trees. For example, it is really terrible that I was very frustrated due to this lockdown. A realistic view might be, I have felt frustration, tough, too bad, it's just a great inconvenience, no more no less. That's one example of demagnifying or de-awfulizing. We can also keep our emotions in their place. For example, tell yourself, just because I am feeling anxious, it does not mean that flying is dangerous. Or just because I am feeling anxious due to the lockdown, it doesn't mean lockdown is very, very dangerous and it's very, very stressful. To summarize, thinking skills are used to promote realistic rather than positive thinking. So we don't encourage positive thinking. That's also part of the therapy. But usually we tend to address the thinking errors, and we tend to make the client think realistically, think rationally. Things may be bad, but seldom are they really awful, unless we allow our thinking to make them so, right? So these are some of the challenging questions we usually ask our clients, like if they are having a lot of thinking errors. So first of the one of the questions we might ask is it logical to think like that? Would a scientist agree with my logic? Where is the evidence for my belief? I have this very hardcore belief. Where is the evidence? We tend to make the clients look for evidence for their beliefs. Is my belief realistic? Would my friends and colleagues agree with my idea? What makes the situation so awful, terrible, or horrible? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Am I exaggerating the importance of this problem? So these are all questions we usually ask clients, so that we are able to challenge their this thinking errors, and we are able to talk about more like helpful thinking, so that they are able to overcome their stressful responses. Uh, so that was about thinking errors and some of the strategies we can employ to address the thinking errors and subsequently manage our stressful responses. So next one is it's more of a visualization or imagery. So by changing our imagery of a situation, we can help ourselves to cope with the stressful situation. So we one common observation is prior to stressful events, people tend to have negative images or pictures in their mind's eye, right, about how they are going to cope, or to be more accurate, not going to cope with the situation. So usually we think like, I will not be able to cope with the situation. These images of doom seldom reduce stress levels. Obviously, they are not going to help or reduce the stress levels. So the person concerned gradually becomes more and more stressed prior to the event. So in coping imagery, we imagine ourselves coping with the feared situation. We directly challenge the negative or catastrophic imagery that may be winding you up prior to the event. Notice the word is coping and not mastering. You just need to cope up with that stressful like event. You just imagine, you just visualize that, and you tend to relax your body. So we know that, like, it's based on the process of reciprocal inhibition. So anxiety and relaxation can't exist at the same time. So once you are visualizing about a very stressful event, at the same time you are inducing general body relaxation, the chances are very high you are able to manage stress for the responses while having that, while experiencing that stressful event in reality, right? Because you have learned to relax in the face of adversity or in the face of this stressful situation. So that happens in coping imagery. Self motivation imagery is used to help people inspire themselves to action in whatever area of life they need to quick jump start. Motivation imagery consists first of visualizing spending the rest of your life not doing what you want to do, and secondly, visualizing actually doing what you want to do. So that's self motivation imagery. Staying focused or goal imagery, it's important when attempting to handling stress and maximize performance that you see further than the current crisis that may be occurring.
Sir,
Developing person.
I'm sorry to interrupt you for a moment, really sorry. I'm asking all my audience, everybody in the audience, all the listeners, kindly turn off your sound, kindly mute yourselves. Please put your systems on mute. Requesting all the listeners, all the members of the audience to kindly put yourself on mute on your systems. We will take all the questions on chat, and each and every question will be addressed. Right now, kindly all of you, turn your systems to mute. Please cooperate with us on this so that we can have this hassle-free. Sir, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I was talking about some of the skills, some of the strategies in imagery we can employ to reduce our stressful responses. So staying focused on goal imagery, it's important when attempting to handle stress and maximize performance that you see further than the current crisis that may be occurring. Developing personal and work related short, medium, and long term goals can be beneficial and help you to stay on track and move forward. Staying focused imagery, also known as goal focused imagery, is a technique that will assist you to remember your goals on a daily basis. So you focus on imagining fulfilling your goals or setting your goals, and you tend to like visualize how you are able to achieve those goals, how you are able to set and after that achieve those goals. So that happens in staying focused or goal imagery. Next one is time projection imagery. That's very important. People often lose their perspective in relation to a stressful situation, right? We all lose our perspective, at least for a very short duration of time, such as becoming unemployed, failing an exam, relationship breakups, or performing very poorly in the exam. Becoming stressed does not usually help them to deal with the situation in a constructive manner. We all know that. And they often lose sight of their goal. So what happens in time projection imagery? It helps to keep the event in perspective, and so is a useful de-awfulizing tool. Next one is relaxation imagery. Relaxation imagery is an excellent method to help achieve a relaxed state of body and mind. It involves visualizing one of your favorite relaxing places. The scenes can be real or imaginary. Hanging out with friends after lockdown, that can be one of the thought or one of the visualization you can bring into your mind, walking through a park or taking a relaxing bath. So once you visualize getting seeing yourself relaxed, obviously you are able to relax in that situation when that actually happens. Anti-craving imagery is usually related to our some impulses or some of the cravings related to food and drugs. When we are stressed or under pressure, we may comfort, eat, and consume our favorite snack foods, right? And if we are smokers under stress, we will generally increase our nicotine intake by smoking more. That usually happens in a stressful situation. Starting and maintaining a healthy eating, weight control diet, or a stop smoking program can be both difficult tasks to undertake. Mental imagery is often central to cravings, especially food cravings. As soon as you start a diet, it's likely you will start to picture your favorite food or snack. And if you stop smoking, you will also picture the source of your nicotine, such as a cigarette or a cigar. You may have noticed that craving intensity increases if you start to imagine food or a cigarette, right? It's particularly worse for dieters. You may even start to salivate as you imagine your favorite food. Anti craving imagery helps you to deal with these images of food or other items like drugs you may crave for by replacing them with neutral pictures instead. So you all have that choice. Instead of visualizing those craving pictures, you can visualize some neutral pictures so that they're helpful. So now, like talking about the behavioral strategies, what we can do at the behavioral level in order to manage a stressful event, we always talk about mindfulness, especially mindfulness-based cognitive therapy or mindfulness meditation. So what happens in mindfulness? We tend to pay attention and be in the present. You can employ mindfulness in almost every activity of your life, like you can do mindfulness eating, you can do mindfulness listening, you can do mindfulness sleeping, or you can do mindfulness relaxation as well. So that happens at the behavioral level, like if you are not able to change your thinking errors, or if you are not able to visualize, or if that visualization doesn't help you to cope up with the stress, you can employ behavioral strategies so that you are able to reduce the stress levels. So one of the things we can also employ is progressive muscular relaxation. We always encourage and employ these techniques, and they are really effective. As I said earlier, like when we induce relaxation in the site or in the face of a stressful event, anxiety and this relaxation can't go hand in hand. Obviously, the person learns to relax in the face of an adversity or a stressful situation. One of the things we also do is assertiveness training. So I just want to focus my attention on this assertiveness rights. Like the literature on assertion usually recognize the number of assertiveness rights. Do you agree that you have the right to say no? Consider your needs important. Obviously, it's related to your wellness. That's why we are talking about assertiveness rights. So, do you agree that you have the right to say no, consider your needs important, make mistakes, take responsibility for your behavior, express your feelings in an appropriate manner without violating anybody else's rights, set your own priorities, or respect yourself? So if you feel like you have those of rights, you enjoy those rights, then you are assertive. If you don't feel like you don't have these set of rights, then you are very very low on assertion. So part of the strategy is like we tend to make people more assertive so that they are able to say no, so that they are able to prioritize themselves in the face of a adverse situation or a stressful event. So assertiveness is very very useful skill in managing with the stress, because we don't play the victim card. We don't victimize yourself. We just take a stand for ourselves and just demand for our rights without violating the rights of others, without disrespecting others. We just demand our rights and we take a stand for those rights. That's what happens in assertiveness training, right? So I just want to discuss this three-step model of assertion that was given by Palmer and Puri. The step one is actively listen to what. So it follows, like when you are in a situation which is like stressful, let's say. So what happens, you usually take step one. So you usually actively listen to what the other person is saying, and demonstrate to the other individual that you have heard and understood that what he or she has said. So you are recognizing the fact that you have listened, you have heard the person, and you have very well understood the person. Now the second step is say what you think and feel. Now the time comes, like you have to express your thinking and feeling. A good linking word to use here between steps 1 and 2 is however. Okay, so once you start listening, once you recognize the fact that you have heard and understood the person, now you say, however, I think like this, I feel like this, however, my opinion is like this. So that happens at the step 2. The third step is say what you want to happen. A good linking word to use between step 2 and 3 is and. However, I think, or however I feel like this, and I will not be able to do it. So that is the 3-step model of assertion. So the 3-step model can be used in any situation, but is of particular use when you feel under pressure to comply with other person's demands. Like obviously, when you are in a stressful situation and you have to comply with the demands of the other person, you tend to show some assertion, right? Using this model, you can make your point in an assertive manner without being offensive. Obviously, you don't have to be offensive. You don't have to be rude. You just need to take a stand and you just need to express your thinking and feeling. And you just need to express your opinion. That is being assertive, right? Without being offensive, and still remain focused on your wishes without being emotional. You are not emotional, you are just focusing on your wishes and you are prioritizing yourself. So that is assertiveness training. And maintaining wellness journal, it's very very good behavioral strategy. So what happens in wellness journal, we tend to maintain a small notebook where we write in our own words all the worries, anxieties and experiences we are facing on a day to day basis. And after writing that, we are going through that journal or a notebook once in a week. So the research says that once you are able to write your worries and anxieties on a sheet of paper, you tend to feel good and you tend to have good insights about how to resolve those issues and problems. So maintaining wellness journal can also be helpful if you are not able to change your thinking patterns, or if you are not able to visualize and cope with the stressful events. Time management also, we shortly talk this meditation, but procrastination, because procrastination also is a very very stressful experience and it can lead to a lot of stress. And in the end we'll be discussing developing goals, right? So I just need to focus on this time management. So if you feel like you tend to procrastinate, especially under this lockdown, so temptation bundling is a very good strategy which was developed by Katie Milkman. She's a behavioral economist, and it's used in business scenarios, and it's used in advertising agencies. Like part of the concept is used in that advertisement industry. But when it comes to our procrastination, we can employ this temptation bundling to help ourselves. So temptation bundling involves simply the coupling of instantly gratifying want activities, for example watching the next episode of a habit forming television show, let's say, with engagement in a should behavior that provides long term benefits but requires the exertion of willpower. For example, exercising at the gym. So it means like you are bundling two behaviors or two things. Like one is your want, another is your should. For example, you are supposed to do your laundry or you are supposed to iron your clothes. Now what you are doing when you employ temptation bundling, your want is to listen to music, or your want is to watch a favorite TV program. Now you are watching that TV program only once you are ironing the clothes. So you are bundling the two behaviors. If you are doing it with other behaviors, you will find like you tend to procrastinate very very less. So one example is like we can you listen to music only while when we are ironing the clothes. So you are focusing on your want and should activities, and you are trying to bundle them. So the moment you iron your clothes, immediately you feel like now it's a time to listen to the music. Now you are bundling the two behaviors. So if you are doing with all the behaviors which you tend to procrastinate, you will really find it very useful tool. So we can say temptation bundling is the idea of combining two activities: one you should be doing but procrastinate on, and one you enjoy doing but isn't the most productive use of your time, right? So, for example, just to quote one of the examples from the authors, Katie, who is the proponent of this technique. So she knew that she should be exercising more, but she spent that time reading or watching her favorite TV shows. By combining these two activities, Milkman created her own temptation bundle. The only way for her to catch up on what happened next in the novel was to exercise. So the only way to catch up on what happened next in the novel, it was only happening after she exercised. So that is one example of temptation bundling we can employ to reduce the procrastination. So that's it. Hope it makes sense and it's useful. You're able to utilize some of these strategies in order to cope up with the stressful events. Yeah.